Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price. Talking to you about you and your business. We got Walter Rogers. He's lined up. He, of course, is with Baker Communications, one of the extraordinary sales and customer relation consulting firms out there, companies out there. They're not just national, they are international, and a regular feature on The Price of Business. Walter, welcome to today's show.
Thanks for having me back. Pleasure as always. Hope you're having an outstanding day.
I am. Thank you. Tell us real quickly who our special guest is today. And by the way, this is a special 2 segments with Walter, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We, we keep building on our story of the 11 habits of highly effective sales professionals. And last week we talked about the importance of the habit of staying and maintaining a really positive attitude, because your attitude will have an impact on everything that you do. And this week we're going to be chatting with Kent Eastman, who is the president of Capital One Bank Texas.
Oh, great!
About the importance of doing all things with integrity. And Kevin, I got to tell you, when times are challenging, that's when people start to blur their values, and sometimes they'll start to take shortcuts and do some things that perhaps aren't in the best interest of the customer, either short-term or long-term. And Capital One Bank takes this extremely seriously, and it's a part of their core values. And Kent is going to talk with us a little bit about their perspective on this very important topic. So, Kent, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you. Great, thanhanks.
Glad to have you. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, I can't think of there's few industries right now, frankly, that are taking any bigger of a beating to what banking is. I think you would agree with that when in terms of reputation over the last couple of years. True?
Yes, absolutely. And, the business pressures that we're all facing, not just in the banking business, but across the various industries and clients that we work with, are just overwhelming as we coming through and coming out of this recession.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I would think that, banking has always been one of those largely kind of noble, kind of dignified sort of things in terms of the way it's perceived in the community. Not so much the last couple of years. And some of the obvious things is because of the bailouts, people think of that type of thing. But what kind of things do you think banking in particular, because that is your industry, needs to be about in terms of working on its own reputational recovery?
Yes, you're right on target there. I mean, there are exacting standards for integrity and professionalism, and it's just an imperative that really no company should ignore. Certainly not our company, but it's really central to protecting and really, in some cases, rebuilding the image of corporate America. And we've had a lot of blows to that corporate America reputation with some of the ethical violations that we've seen in recent years. So the whole issue of ethics is one that we take very seriously, and really it's kind of embedded at the core. If you look at our values here at Capital One Bank, right at the top of that list is integrity. It's the respecting for the customers, respecting for each other, and it's keeping an attitude of an owner. And that's what really shifts the scale. I think so many people that are tempted some points in selling to compromise their ethics, if they really take a long-term view of building relationships with clients, of having trust at the core, and recognizing it's not about a particular sale or a particular product, but it's about a long-term relationship that will lead to continued business opportunities. That really shifts the needle and helps us to keep on path and on course for upholding the highest in our ethical standards.
Walter?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Kent anymore, and as I mentioned, it's really tempting sometimes because of economic pressures to take some shortcuts and how you really build a relationship with your customer. And it may pay in the short term, but I tell you what, it sure bites you in the long term. Customers are smart; they're going to recognize that you're not being honest and have integrity with them. So you're just really cheating yourself. And in the article that I published this week to go along with the show, there are some specific examples, and I'll just go through one of them right now, which was one we actually see quite often these days, which is selling something to a customer that isn't really in their best interest, So some salespeople are really good, and they can convince somebody to buy anything at all, whether it's of use to them or not. And, at some point the customer is going to recognize that they were sold a bill of goods, and certainly will take action, and that action will, could come in many forms, could come in the form of a request for a refund, which is probably the cheapest of all forms of reactions. Mm-hmm. The worst one is a customer that's now actively negatively promoting you in the community, which is something you never want, and it's very difficult to recover from.
Yeah.
Walter, on that point, I mean, that's one of the things that we focus on at Capital One Bank is building client relationships. And the thing that's key about that is it enables you to really identify needs for selling versus going out and pushing a product or trying to sell a product. So when you talk about needs-based selling, really at the core of that is having a client relationship that enables you to identify those needs. And that's the key to kind of staying away from, that temptation sometimes to push a product that, we have in all of our companies, and really focusing on what's best in the long term for this client and this relationship, this long-term relationship that we're establishing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're. I mean, Kent, that's so spot on. And sometimes, because some salespeople are not really good at uncovering needs, they may be selling a product that is not a good product or service that's not a good fit for the customer, not intentionally now. Now, they're not doing it because of a lack of integrity. They're doing it because of a lack of understanding of the customer needs to begin with, which is a whole different issue in and of itself, of course. But, that as well can damage a client relationship.
It seems to me that just to ride on what Kent was saying just a moment ago, it seems to me that the only time people really talk about a company is either A, when they're semi-unhappy to extremely unhappy, and they're louder based on the level of unhappiness, or B, when people are just outrageously great in the service they provide. And it really has to be, like Ken Blanchard talked about, the ability to facilitate or create the raving fan. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So there's a whole notion around Net Promoter Scores, which is a way in which you measure customer satisfaction at a much, much deeper level. And the concept you just described basically is a customer is either going to promote you actively, be neutral, or be negative. And most companies don't have a really good grasp around whether or not their clients are net promoters, they're neutral, or they're actually negative. And those organizations that go through an actual measurement process that understand the relationship between what customers are saying in the marketplace and what they think is, what they think the level of satisfaction is, once they get a handle on that and start to act positively towards improving those net promoter scores, actually substantially outperform the competition. Mm-hmm. So it's, you're right, people, and then normally the people that talk the loudest are those that complain. People that are happy don't necessarily go around bragging unless they're really, really happy.
Really happy.
Exactly. Kent, what are your thoughts on that?
At Capital One, we've got two principal core values that's simply delivering excellence and doing the right thing. And when you really capture that doing the right thing, it sets the framework that you really need. I think for all companies, you've got to have that embedded framework. Of course, we've got a detailed code of business conduct and ethics. We do annual training for every employee on that. And other specific things that you need to do. But when you talk about business ethics, it's really evolved. It used to be a fairly straightforward concept, kind of making square deals with customers and dealing honestly. But now you've really got to encompass it even deeper to the broader concept of corporate responsibility and citizenship and how you execute that in your community and how your employees execute that in your community. So at the core, doing the right thing as a guideline, because there's no way companies can write policies to address every single ethical situation that might be encountered. You want certainly to have policy guidelines for that, but you've got to have it embedded in the culture, for it to really be effective in the field on a day-to-day basis in a large corporation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have a question actually from a listener from Ohio. He said that his former employer, National City Bank, changed management styles and focused on management backing away and letting workers have more say. Workers made decisions and management washed their hands of mistakes. It was called collaborative work system management. I think it may have been called that. It may have been intended to be that, but that's a little different than what collaborative system management really is, isn't it?
We practice some of that. I'm not sure I completely understand the concept that he's hitting on, but when we look at our core values, two of those are ownership, for our associates to act like owners, which involves empowering yourselves and others to do the right thing on behalf of the company, on behalf of the client, and also the concept of teamwork, which involves, we talk about collaboratively working together. So those are very important elements. They have to be done in the broader context of having policies and procedures procedures, including that ethical framework, so that, you've got some real clear guidelines. But within that framework, for the associates to be able to take ownership, to feel empowerment, and to work collaboratively, those are very important concepts in executing on a daily basis on behalf of our clients.
Yeah, so you're saying that, this concept only works if there's mutual accountability, which apparently in the scenario the solicitor's talking about, it lacked that management accountability, which is why it apparently did not work. He said the bank eventually crashed and burned, which is not a pretty thing, as you well know. All right, I'm Kevin Price. You're listening to the Price of Business. We got Walter Rogers here. He's got a great guest, Ken. He's been talking about the most important standards and values out there to maintain a good reputation in business. We're going to continue this discussion here on the Price of Business on the new Talk 650 powered by CBS Radio.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside.
Welcome back to the Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price. Shouts out to Cynthia Green, good friend there on Facebook, saying hello, as well as a new friend from Columbus, Ohio, named Mark. I've got a whole growing list of friends in Ohio. It's interesting to see how this show, thanks to the power of the internet, literally footprints all over the country. A lot of that has to do with my syndicated column, but great to see and get feedback from all these great people from around the country. I'm talking to really a guy I consider a genius when it comes to sales and customer relations, and that is my good friend Walter Rogers with Baker Communications at bakercommunications.com. I want you to reintroduce our guest, Kent. Reintroduce him, please.
Oh, absolutely. So we have Kent Eastman, the president of Capital One Bank Texas, joining us on the show today, talking about the importance of integrity and maintaining integrity in the selling process. And one of the final comments that we were just talking about on the previous segment was the importance of teamwork and accountability. And, Kevin, sometimes I throw some statistics curveballs at you, so I'm going to give you another sports quiz if you don't mind today. What do you think the margin of victory, the average margin of victory was for the last 10 years in the Indy 500?
Oh, my goodness. I wish you'd at least tell me what category these quizzes were going to be in before we do them. I did pretty good last week on I think, the Cy Young question. I was pretty close. Yeah. I have a pretty healthy respect for the fact that in spite of thinness of margins and numbers that look rather negative, makes you guys who end their career with a 305, not a 350, 305 batting average, usually are Hall of Famers if they did it for 20 years. And so, in fact, they're always Hall of Famers, and so I would say it's got to be almost tenths of seconds. I mean, they're very small margins.
Yeah, it's 1.54 seconds. That is the average margin of victory over the last 10 years. And a lot of people, it's just nothing. Think about it, 1.54 seconds, that's already passed. Well, I was saying that. So the thing that most people think about in the Indy 500 is that, well, you've got a race car driver, and he's driving that car around the track, and, it's all about that race car driver and his performance and his ability to outperform everybody else. But just think about this. It's not just what happens on the track. It's what happens when they make those pit stops. And it's how that crew comes together and, changes the tires, does whatever they have to do to that car to get it back on the road as fast as possible, and that's what teamwork can do. And the margin, that 1.54 seconds, that margin of difference for victory, meant this. The winner takes an average of $1.2 million home before endorsements. The second place, $600,000. So 2x.
Hey, think about this. Think about this. The guys in swimming who break a record, come in third or fourth place, would have broken world records 5, 6, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-boggling when you think about it. And so this whole performance issue, it really does come down to fractions. And so that really should be part of the whole mentality of understanding our levels of success, too. Walter?
Yeah, it really should. It really should. And I know Capital One has a really strong teaming culture, and that's one of the things that they really drive, and that's one of the reasons that we asked Kent to come on the show in the context of integrity and how you work together as a team. So, Kent, I don't know, can you comment a little bit about how you guys tackle, the importance of collaboration and teaming, and if there's a context to integrity?
Absolutely. When you talk about the integrity and building trust, it's of course an absolute imperative with your external clients, but it's so important internally to building teamwork. If you think about your corporate culture, it's all about the promises made and kept to each other internally and to the client. So as you're building teamwork and trying to work collaboratively, you've got to build the same kind of relationship internally that you do externally, which is founded on trust. And when you do that internally, your team then is set to better execute for that external client. And when you do that, benefits to the company are clear, because with a foundation of trust across all relationships, we've got credibility with our clients. That transfers to other issues, to other needs they may have in future years, and that credibility also transfers into referral opportunities, because in selling, one of the best opportunities you have is that referral from a client that you've established that kind of a relationship with to someone that they know and that they have credibility with, that enables us to enter new relationships and continue to grow our business.
Mm-hmm. Kent, I was just talking about that actually earlier this morning with one of the VPs in my company, and he was talking about the importance of the relationship between what he calls the promise makers and the promise keepers, right? The promise makers being your sales professionals, and the promise keepers, those that actually have to service the account with whatever promises have been made. And if the relationship between those two groups is really tight, the customer can feel that. They can experience it, because you're not getting into situations where the promise maker is making promises that the promise keepers can't deliver.
Yeah, that's what I liked about your example with the IndyCar racing, and that margin of victory sounds so narrow. I think sometimes it's the same in our business as we're building sales, as we're building our business, and the difference is the execution. And so that we have identified needs. We've communicated the products, the services that we have to address those needs, and we set time frames for addressing those. And it's all about execution. And that narrow margin of victory in our business, and in I think most of the listeners there, it's all about execution. That's always been at the core of establishing relationships and building sales, and it's really that narrow competitive difference in winning business and growing your sales and growing your company is being able to execute on behalf of the client in a way consistent with the expectations and those, what we're calling promises.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I tell you, I think now more than ever, people are very, very cynical, and I think now, in many respects, more than ever, they have more reason to be, because in spite of all the regulations, all the laws, all the punitive things that can take place, businesses seem to be pretty flimsy when it comes to matching what they say with what they'll do. And so, I think it's very important that this can only happen, particularly with large corporations. And of course, your bank is absolutely huge, is that it's a cultural thing. It's systemic in the way you conduct your business.
That's right. That's why when you look at our values, it's embedded there. When you look at our code of business conduct and ethics, certainly embedded there. The annual training for our employees. We have a toll-free hotline to support any suspected ethics violations. And it's something that we try to model and communicate with our employees on an ongoing basis. It's how you build the culture. And certainly, as I said earlier, you have guidelines, but you really got to establish it at a deeper level so that the associates across a large company have their own judgment that's founded on the same principles as they face decisions to be made. Because, as you said, the business world is at a time of stress currently with the recession and the demands on all of our companies, and we see it with our clients as well. And so everyone is kind of stressed and pressured as they face the challenges in the economy today, and that makes it all important to be well grounded in the ethics and the business relationships internally and externally.
Yeah.
As we face those challenges.
No question about it. No question about it. Talking to Kenny Eastman and of Capital One Texas, and of course Walter Rogers. We talk to Walter Rogers every Wednesday here. He's with Baker Communications, BakerCommunications.com. As we wind down, Kent, make sure you want to make sure you have the opportunity to mention your website there for your company.
Right, www.CapitalOneBank.com, and we have a tremendous bank, tremendous company here in Texas, growing rapidly in the Houston area, and a great leadership team there, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to address this very, very, very critical subject. As one of the top 10 banks in the country, building trusted and strong relationships with our clients, with our stakeholders, is absolutely critical to our success.
One of the top 10, which number are you on that ranking?
We're number 8.
Number 8. And, you know, you guys came from relatively nowhere, at least perception-wise. So the banking's one of those things where it's kind of hard to tell, to being, really, it feels like all of a sudden the last 2 decades a major player. Why don't you kind of sketch that timeline for us real quick as we kind of get near the end here?
Absolutely. Capital One entered the banking about 6 years ago. We've acquired long-term historical banks, particularly here in Texas, of over 100 years old, and have just grown that platform of local banking, local service, local autonomy, and that's the key to our execution, even though we're one of the larger banks in the country, is to deliver for each customer in each local market and be able to execute in just the very manner that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Walter, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on one of the comments that Kent made in terms of the importance of integrity. And every company should have a code of conduct document, an ethics document, all of that. And as Kent mentioned, there is no way you can list every possible condition and situation that an employee could encounter. But, you should have some guidelines and policies, and employees should be aware of it. But I strongly believe that at the core of every individual, they know what's right and wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody has their barometer, and you should listen to that barometer. And if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, and people should feel that. And one of the last comments I'll make is, and I'll list this in the article as well, is one of the things that gives that makes people secure in your integrity is when problems do occur inside an account. And problems always occur. They'll always occur. There could be a process problem, a payment problem, relationship problem, whatever. There's all kinds of issues. Is to don't make excuses about the problem and try to put that blame on somebody else. Accept what's happening and move towards resolution with that customer.
Yeah,
and that's just another example of selling with integrity.
Great coach out there, an inspiration to me, Steve Chandler, author of many books. He used to always say that, you know what, the more you can own, the more you can control. And that which you can't own, you're a victim of. And so I tell you right now, when we make mistakes, we need to own as many of these mistakes and as much of the mistakes as possible in order to overcome them. What we can't own, we're a victim of, and there's no weaker position than being a victim.
Yeah, no, there's really not. Really not. And everybody you can control your own destiny, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the attitude everybody ought to have. And it just goes right back to Kent's statement about everybody feeling like an owner. You start feeling like an owner, you behave like an owner, you act like an owner, then all of a sudden magical things will start to happen around you because people will perceive you in a very different way because you'll be behaving in a very different way.
That's exactly right. Again, Walter Rogers, great insight. Why don't you let us know, give us an idea real quick in this last minute what we can expect next week.
I am so excited about the segment next week, I can't even tell you. So we have partnered with Ogilvy & Mather, which is one of the world's largest advertising agencies,
wow.
Very, very famous agency. And they ran a contest, a global contest to identify the world's best salesperson. We will have the winner of that contest on the air with us next week.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, what kind of a coup you got there?
Yeah, we're absolutely thrilled. They went through this process. They had 3 finalists fly to Cannes, France, to present at an Ogilvy Mather's advertising conference. They picked a winner. That winner is going to be on an internship with Ogilvy Mather, and we will be blessed to have that person on the air next week.
Yeah, that's going to be
excited about it. Yep.
That's going to be fantastic. And with one last minute on Kent, what are some other things people can expect around the bend when it comes to Capital One?
Well, we have really focused on the basics in our business here in Texas, and so we have done very well through this cycle, and we are just active in continuing to grow our business. Texas is a real growth market for us, and we've had a very, very successful platform, mm-hmm. even through the challenges of this economy. So I think you'll continue to see us growing and building our business, and continue to see us as an active lender, working to support the economy, to support our clients.
Kent, I got to go, my friend. Ken Eastman, he's there with Capital One. Walter Rogers, Baker Communications. You're listening to Talk 650, powered by CBS Radio.